All right, so here we are. Let's take our application to the next step. So what I want to do in this video, I want to add a couple of more fields here. I want to add one field here that's gonna be asking the user for their zip code, and another field here on the right that will give them an estimate for, I don't know, shipping price. I guess we'll say that we give that user for that particular zip code. And the information that we're gonna get for shipping cost, we're gonna store, I guess, as another tab on our spreadsheet. So I'm gonna add another tab. I'm gonna say estimate or something and move it over here. And here what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna have two columns. The first column is gonna be some zip codes. So first of all, since zip codes could have zeros in the beginning, I want to make sure this column is actually formatted as plain text. So now I'm going to enter some zip codes. And on the right, we're going to enter some amounts. These will be our shipping costs or whatever these things are for this zip codes. So let's add those fields here. So since we're using materialized CSS for our user interface, I'm going to open it. Now in our materialize, we're going to go to the left here under forms. And I want to go under text inputs, and I want two inputs again side by side, pretty much like these, first name, last name. In addition, I'm gonna use this disabled input. So if you look at this disabled input, if I'm clicking here, I can actually type, but this disabled, it's not really something that our user can type. Let's add those. So I'm going to go to my application, and this is our HTML. Open our HTML. So far we did see that's the first name and last name thing. I'm just going to make a copy of that because we should be able to use most of that. So I'm going to copy that. We have this row that's our drop down on the other thing, and then we have the row for our button. So just before our button, we'll paste this new row. Now instead of first name, we're gonna ask for zip code, and we have to give this some sort of ID so we can grab that field with JavaScript later on. So I'm gonna give it an ID zip. Half of the screen, that's fine. The rest is pretty much okay for that. The second one is going to be where we're going to place the actual estimate when we actually grab it from our spreadsheet after user enters their zip code. So here we're going to just type estimate. We need this disabled. So let's go back to materialize and see how we need to handle that. So disabled here is after first and last name, which is this one. So let's see, this is disabled, ID disabled, type class. So it doesn't seem to have anything else other than just this simply just says disabled in input box. It's basically plain HTML5. So I should be able to just go back and just add for this field that it's disabled, just like that. This gives us a little error. That's fine. It's just not handling HTML5 that well, apparently. Let's give it an ID. EST, short for estimate. So that should do it for user input, I think. Let's just refresh this and see what's going on. There it is, zip code, and see estimate. If I try to click here and type, nothing's happening here. But hopefully we'll be able to pull that information and add that estimate with the JavaScript. So what we want from our user to enter the zip code right here. So my user experience should be they enter their zip code, and we grab the estimate from our spreadsheet and bring it here to our form. To accomplish this, we need to have a couple of things. First of all, we need to be able to work with these inputs. When somebody types something in, we want to be able to grab this information without our user clicking on a button. So the way it should work is, as soon as the user enters here, I don't want them to click on a button. I just want my script to automatically run and go get the information and plug it in here without the user actually doing some specific action. So let's see how we can run something as the user types something in this box, right? So the box is for the zip code. So for that, we're going to go to our JavaScript. So let's just remember ID for our zip code field is zip. I'm going to open my JavaScript. Now here we need to add an event listener. So remember, before we add an event listener for a button, which was click event, now we're going to add an event listener. So I'm just going to copy that. This whole thing really should go under this, but I'll talk about that later. But for now, let's just keep this here. That's fine. So the ID is zip, and the event I'm listening for this time is not going to be click, because I don't want to run that when somebody clicks in this box. I want to run that when somebody types in this box. And we can do that by using this event in JavaScript input. And that's basically, as user enters the information, after they enter it, it's going to run it. And it's going to run it every time somebody types one character or removes one character. So every time there is basically a change in that input box. We need to run a different function. We don't want to run the same function, which used to be this. So for this, we're going to create a new function. This one is going to be get estimate. Now we don't have that function, obviously. We're going to have to create it. So I'm going to scroll down. This is that function we did before. I'm going to create another function right below that one. And that's going to be that function that I'm planning to trigger with my event listener. Just to make sure this works right now, what I'm going to do this. I'm just going to grab the input from this box and put it in this estimate box, just to see that we can make this work. So when the user types something in this input box, we're going to run this get estimate function. Now in this get estimate function, first I want to just grab what's in that zip code box that we're currently in. So this is the line. I'm just going to copy and paste. We're going to have to store it in a variable. I'm going to say var zip code equals this, and the ID for the zip is zip. So I'm going to go grab the zip ID input box, and I'm going to get the value out of it, and I'm going to put that value in the zip code variable. Now we need to place that zip code, whatever that is, inside of the other box, and the other box, if I'm not mistaken, I called it EST, the ID. And we need that value to become whatever that zip code is. Let's go back and just verify that this was EST. So if I go to my HTML, see, this is called ID EST. Good. Save this. Let's test it out. So I'm going to go back here and refresh. So if I go to the zip code box, type 5, see, it puts that 5 in this estimate box. It has this thing in the background, apparently, that we'll have to clear and figure out what we're going to do with that. But as I'm typing, every character goes to the right box. So basically what happens every time we type anything in this or clear anything, that function runs, and that function just grabs what's in this box and puts it in the second box. Now the problem with this is that if somebody enters a zip code, I don't want to search for that zip code in my spreadsheet with every character they type, because if somebody types 7, I don't want to go and search my spreadsheet, because that's going to be a lot of work for my script to do, but it's not necessary because this is not a valid zip code. So I want to make sure that this, whatever user types here, is 5 character long. And at that point, I want to send this information to my sheet and try to get the shipping information on it. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure I clean this estimate thing. So what's probably happening is that we need to refresh the actual element after it's entered. I probably still want to keep that word estimate in here, but as somebody has some information in there, I just want this field to refresh. And because again, we're using materialize, we probably just need to refresh that field. So let's see what we need to do here. So if I check our documentation, update text fields, that should probably work. There's also this thing, try add this class active. I'm going to try that and see if that works. So we're going to try to add this class active to this box, this estimate, to see if that fixes our problem. And if not, we're going to probably run some JavaScript for this. So I'm going to go to my HTML. I'm going to find that estimate box. And I think it said added for the label, right? Try adding to the label. Yes. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. The label for us is this. And we're going to add that class to that label. So let me save and refresh and see what happens now. Nope, that didn't fix our problem here. So we probably need to refresh this. So let's go back and see. So this is this m update text fields. So I'm going to try to run this function as well to try to update that. So I'm just going to copy that. I don't really need this document ready because that would just trigger it when the page loads. I just want this to happen after I type in a box. So let's try this. I'm going to scroll down to our function here. After we put that zip code in there, we'll run that update thing. Save this, refresh. Okay, let's see. Awesome. See, now our estimate just jumps up instead of being that weird thing. So if we clear, it goes back there. And if we start typing, it just starts putting our numbers in a box. So now let's get to our zip code problem. So the first thing is that I don't want this to run as I type. So if I type just 7, I don't want that to just run and do this. I want to wait until we have 5 characters. So for that, we're going to do a little bit of conditional statement here. So instead of just running this every single time, we're going to do an if statement. Something like that. And our if statement is going to be if the zip code is 5 characters long. And we can do that by taking that zip code and doing length property on it. And we're going to say if that equals to 5, then let's run this thing. You could probably trim to remove spaces and all the stuff. I'm not going to worry about that in this video. So now let's just see what happens. Save this and refresh. So now if I start typing, see, 5, 4, 6, nothing, nothing. I add one more. There it is. Now we have 5 characters. So we run that function as soon as that's 5 characters long. What we also probably need to think about if we start deleting this. So see, it's not going to run that function. It's just going to keep whatever's in here until it's again 5 characters long, and it's going to run that again, which I think is fine. So that's something to decide as UI how you want to handle that situation. Or if somebody clears the zip code, maybe we want to clear whatever estimate was entered there. Who knows? That can be handled. But for now, we're going to run that function when it's 5 characters long. And our function should be to go grab the information from our application and kind of bring it here, right? So we need to, again, run some code on our application side. If you remember, to run some script on our application side, we have to do this thing. this Google script run. So we're gonna do that. I don't really want to type the zip code in a box. That is not what we're looking for, but for now I'm just gonna keep it in there. Later on we'll just change the zip code to whatever that shipping estimate needs to be. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna run this Google script run thing. We need to run a function on, if you remember, this is gonna run on the server side, which is here. We're gonna name that function. We'll just say get cost. I would probably name it the same as this get estimate, but I don't want to call it the same so you don't get confused about this. So get cost, and we're gonna send the zip code to that function get cost on our application side. Now here I'm gonna go back and create that get cost function. So function get cost, and that function accepts, remember, that zip code. And what this function is supposed to do, it's supposed to go through this file in this estimate list, search and find the zip code, and get us the shipping code from this column. So that means we need to access our spreadsheet again. And we're gonna save it to an SS variable. We're gonna get our worksheet, which is now gonna be estimate. And in this worksheet, we need to basically grab our data to an array. So we'll say var data, I guess, equals 2. So we'll get our worksheet dot get range. The range we need to get is gonna be, I'm just gonna do this 1 1 starting. The number of rows, I'm not really planning to add anything else here other than this stuff, so I'll just get the last row with a regular method for our worksheet, get last row. So since we don't have a label on top, the last row will be our number of rows, so that's fine. And we need this to be 2 columns, and to get this to an array, we're gonna say get values. So again, all of these, you can watch my previous videos on Google Sheets to understand what exactly I'm doing here if you don't know this. So that should get us an array, which should be 2-dimensional array of the zip codes and this. So what I need to do, I need to just search in the zip codes list and find if I can find that zip code that user typed in this list. And if I do, where it's located. So to do that, I need to get a clean 1-dimensional list of all of this zip codes to be able to use index of on our array. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it zip codes list. And let's just make this lowercase. So I'm going to make this equal to, I'm going to map my data, and I'm going to do our callback function, which should accept the row as the argument. And I need the first column values, which will be return R0, the first index. So that should give us a list of zip codes. Now, as I'm doing this, maybe I should also get the other one to an array too, to get a list of shipping codes. Although it's not really necessary. It's an extra step for our application to run. But to keep this clean, I guess we'll do that. So we'll do cost list. And that will be the second column, which is 1. And we can do that by doing this dot index of. And we're going to search for that zip code. And that should give us the position of it. Now we should probably check if we are able to find that zip code. So let's just first save this to a variable, I guess, before that if. So I'm going to say var position equals to this. And I'm going to say if that position is, so what index of does, if you remember, index of is going to give us -1 when that position is not found, and it's going to give us a number from 0 and higher when that position is actually in there. So I'm going to say if that position is greater than -1, that should tell us that we were able to find it, and else we probably didn't find it. So if we do find something, which is the position in which that's in, we should just grab it from the cost list. So we'll just have to return that amount. So I'm going to say return that from the cost list, the position. So just to go with this again, so we're searching in the zip codes list. So let's say we're searching for this zip code. So we're going to go from this list and go 0, 1, 2. We're going to find that position is 2. Now we found that position is 2. So we're going to go here. We're going to check, is this 2 greater than -1? Yes, it is. So we're going to go from this cost list and return the item in that same position. That's 2. So we're going to go here 0, 1, 2. So that's going to be this 40. So we're going to just return that 40 from this cost list, which is going to be an array of that second column. So otherwise, what are we going to return otherwise? I guess we'll just return text. We'll just say unavailable. So that should be our function. Now, how are we going to use it on our JavaScript side? So that's going to run that function. It's going to go with the zip code thing, and it's going to run it. So what then, right? So the way you get that information from that, so what's going to happen is going to take some time for this to run that and get that information back. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually do this thing that you can do on this run script object, and you add this with success handler method on this. What this is going to do is going to say, let's run this get cost function and see if it returns anything. And if it does, we're going to just give whatever that returns to whatever function we give here in this box. And that's going to be that function I'm going to call update estimate. So that function doesn't exist, which means we have to create it. So that's going to go right here. And that update estimate function, it's going to accept whatever the other function returns back, which is, in our case, this return values. So for that, we'll go here and say, well, that's probably going to be the cost. That's what it's going to return. And when it returns the cost, we want to just take that cost and put it in that, remember, in that box in our UI, in this estimate box. And the way we used to put things in our estimate box, it was these two lines. So I'm going to take those from here because we don't want to have those there, because we just want to run this in here. And here, after we get the information from our spreadsheet, the cost, then it's going to automatically run this update estimate function, which is this function, which is going to send us the cost. We're going to take that cost and just plug it in that estimate box. And then because we're working with materialize CSS UI, we have to also update the text field to not have that weird thing with our input element, if you remember. So I'm going to save this. Let's test this and see what happens. So go back, refresh this. Now I'm going to type some zip codes. So 98546. And see, it says unavailable because, well, why? Because that's not in here, right? So let's try 60602. Let's change this so we can see that's a different number, 60602. I'm going to go back here. Nope, not this one. I'm going to just remove this 60602. And there it is, 45, 60601, 40. So now I'm able to communicate to that script, get that information, and plug it in without even clicking on any buttons. It just runs automatically as our user interacts with this. So that's 40. That's good. So we should probably just format this to make this look decent. And we can do that too. That's some text work to add a $sign and maybe some zeros and comma separators. But the number comes back as just a number. So it's 40. So we could spend quite a bit of time on that formatting, but I'm going to keep this simple. So we'll just go back to our code, and instead of returning this, which is going to be the dollar amount in that position, we're going to do this to fixed and 2. And what this is going to do is going to add 2 decimal points in the end. So if I save this, let's just go test this out. 40.00. That's good. Now I'm also going to add a $sign in the beginning. So I'm going to go back here and concatenate a $sign. Now let's see what happens. I'm going to go back, refresh. So if we enter a zip code that exists in a list, that should be 40. If we enter something that does not, it should say unavailable. Now let's just try to add something else here to make sure this works. So I'm going to do a 60620 and let's add some dollar amount. I'm going to go back here. 60620 and 99. Perfect. So everything is working fine. Now we should probably also, when we run this, send all of this information to our spreadsheet here and add those columns, zip code, and the estimate. So, and I'm gonna do them, I guess, here. So that should be fairly easy. If we go back to the function we did before, when we got our, where's our HTML? This is our JavaScript. So in this JavaScript, remember we got the first name, the last name, the app. Now we just need to add a couple of more fields here. So I'm just gonna do this, and this is gonna be zip, and this is gonna be est, and we're gonna do zip and est again. Those are the object variables. We are probably also going to clear those variables. Zip and est. So again, that's all this stuff. We're going to set it to nothing. Good. So now we're passing this extra things from this side, the zip and estimate. Now we need to just catch that information on our code side, which we do on this, see, user clicked append row thing. So I did the app and I did add those columns, if you remember, after this one. So comma 1, comma 2. So one of them is called zip. The other one is called est. So a little extra information. Date will stay the last column here. I'm just going to save. If I zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole line. Save, go back. Let's test this out. I'm going to refresh. Linda, Doe, choose our app, enter zip code. That's going to run the estimate, run it. Good. That goes back to our spreadsheet. One thing I've noticed, this estimate didn't go back to where it initially was. So, but this is fine. We have our zip code. We have all of this. That's nice. We have entered this information correctly. I should probably format this as plain text as well. Zip codes. Good. Now let's just fix that input thing. See, right now it did go to blank, but if we refresh this form, it used to just say estimate. So that's because we still need to refresh that box after it updates, right? The same way we did that for this. When we update our text fields, we need to update our text fields here as well after we clear them. Go back and take a look. So I'm gonna go back here and refresh. So Jack Smith, and we'll just do some thing here. That's our estimate. Run. Everything goes into place and everything is in here. And that's how we handle when we run something on this side, send it to the script side, handle it back there, and send it back to our UI. Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.